Well, I'm very excited to talk to you because, not to put you on the spot, but I feel like I'm talking to a future Oscar nominee. I really do. Because I'm going to quote Elton John. He said, when he looked at this performance, he said, "I don't see an actor, I see myself." And he really nailed it.
That's a lovely thing of him to say, yeah. I think he and I have developed quite a close bond, and I think he sees, I think that's often the case where younger people befriend someone who's a little older. I think he sees qualities or whatever in me that he felt about himself, and so I think that probably feeds into his appraisal of the movie, but that's very kind of him.
It was kind, but I think it was also accurate because, it can really take you out of a movie if you're watching a biopic and the person isn't nailing it and it seems so obviously miscast. And you really did nail it. And I'm wondering, what was your process in becoming Elton, basically? Did he give you kind of tips on how to become Elton?
No, I don't. No, not really. I think it's about. I hope it's about commitment, and the portraying someone like Elton is so about extremes, and those extremes can appear outlandish and daunting and foreign and alien. So the only thing you can do is just attack it, like a bull to a red flag, and hope and have trust in the fact that when it all comes together, it will feel like a half-decent performance. But I don't have, I wish I had a sort of 10-step guide to how I became Elton, but I don't, I'm afraid.
I feel like your paths, you've always sort of been on this path, I think, obviously, with movies like Sing and Kingsman,
Right,
there
yeah.
was an Elton connection. And then I'm interested, didn't you have a very important audition early in your acting career where you sang an Elton song?
I did. So when I auditioned, I was lucky enough to get a place at RADA when I was 19, and the song that I sang to audition was your song. And it was for many of my drama school auditions, but it was just a song that I've always loved. I know it's always, that song is so from the heart in terms of what it communicates, that it just felt like a good song to act through.
Was it surreal then to then be singing it in a very pivotal scene in Rocketman? It's a scene where they have their commercial breakthrough, and here you are doing it.
Yeah, it was very surreal, and that, I approached that scene like it. Elton is as bad at talking about his writing process as I am about talking about my acting process. Sorry, Elton, if that's too much for me to say, but he's rubbish at talking about it because he doesn't know what happens. It just sort of happens. And so when it came to performing that scene, I approached it, because I didn't have anything to go on, I approached it like he was discovering it, and it was something that he finds. And I mean, that's partly true because Bernie writes the lyrics, but the melody I approached like it was coming from somewhere else. Because then when you approach it like that, you can play with all of the joy and the delight and the spontaneity and the surprise of discovering it, which is what you want the audience to feel during that scene.
What is it about that song when you chose it for your auditions when you were a teenager? Why that Elton song? What is it, the connection?
Well, I think it's got a very clear voice in it. It has a character in it, excuse me forgetting, but these things I do, you see, I've forgotten if they're green or they're blue. There's a kind of emotional inarticulacy in it that's very human, and so you can really act your way through it because it's perfect in its imperfection in terms of the voice in it. It's a perfect song, but the character in it doesn't express themselves perfectly. Does that make sense?
It does.
I don't know if I'm making sense.
No, it's very relatable. It's human.
Yeah, it's very human.
Yeah, it makes total sense. So obviously you sing in this film, which in most musical biopics is not the case. The actor's voice is dubbed or whatever. So I want to talk about the challenges of that. First of all, are you going to do a singing career perhaps after this, like your own material? Elton may be writing some material for you? Because you can sing.
I don't know about that. I mean, I really love singing, and I'm developing a taste for live singing as well. But I think I'd really love it to feature, in my acting career more. I'd love to play some more roles that involve singing. But I don't think I don't think I'm going to be releasing an album just because I don't think I'm that good. Do you know what I mean? I think I'm good. I hope I'm good enough to suit the purposes of, you know, a musical film. But I'm not an instrumentalist, so,
Okay.
you know, I'm not sure how I'd write songs. Yeah, I guess Elton could write some for me, but I don't. I think he's got. I think if he's writing songs for anyone, they're going to be for him.
Fair enough. But what were the challenges of, like I said, unlike other actors in musical biopics where they just have to act and they don't have to worry about the singing, what were the unique challenges of you having to also convincingly sound like Elton as well as embody his character?
You know, you mainly just focus on singing them as best as you can and finding a meaning within them. You know, so many of Bernie's lyrics are quite nebulous anyway, that you try and attach a meaning to them that suits the storytelling purposes. So in I'm Still Standing, I found a taste of love in a simple way. You know, when he turns and says that to his fellow recovery, rehabilitation, you know, therapy room friends, it's it's obvious what kind of meaning we're trying to attach to that lyric. So but that's been great fun, trying to sort of reimagine them in that way and give them a meaning that suits the purpose of our film. Since
you mentioned I'm Still Standing, the final sequence, or towards the end, did you reenact the entire music video to I'm Still Standing?
So we did. So what happened was, when we were doing the main body of the shoot, we didn't really know what we were going to do, and so I basically just choreographed this journey. I say choreograph, that sounds very grand. I'm not a choreographer, but our fantastic choreographer, Adam Murray, wasn't there that day. I think because no one thought I'd be dancing. So I sort of improvised this kind of strange little, you know, this little routine from the therapy room out of the rehab centre whilst singing a very slowed down version of I'm Still Standing. And I did it to no music because we didn't have the arrangement then. So Giles built an arrangement around what I did, and it's so beautiful. But I basically just freestyled, really. And then what happened was I arrived at the door at a certain moment in the song, and we didn't really know what we were going to do outside of the rest, you know, to finish the movie. And this idea of placing me in the I'm Still Standing video came about after the main body of the shoot, and we did it during reshoots. And it's great fun because it brings us back to the real Elton. Because the world of the film's kind of strange and kooky, and it's sort of my version of him, but it sort of brings us really neatly back to him. And this incredible video that he recorded at Cannes in the 80s.
Russell Mackay directed that video. He directed all the Duran Duran videos back in the day. I'm a big video geek.
Got it.
And that's my favorite Elton song. I could not stop smiling at how perfectly it was recreated, almost shot for shot, costume for costume.
Yeah, we did. We recreated it shot for shot, with me kind of pretty much aping his movements. I think a bit of freedom is nice because it makes you creative and it makes it feel fresh. Things can start to feel a bit dead if you just copy them exactly. And then Dexter edited it all together. And then there's bits that shift and change, but it's pretty faithful.
It was so friggin' good.
Thanks.
I just couldn't stop. I'm smiling now.
Great.
I mean, because that was a moment of levity in the film. Obviously, there's darkness in the film.
Of course,
as well.
yeah. Well, we want it to end on a high. You know, we want it to be uplifting. So.
But that's one thing I appreciate about this film. Not to talk poorly of other biopics, but there are some biopics, particularly when the person who it's about is involved, that are quite sugar-coated.
Yeah.
And this one doesn't have that. There are, Elton allows himself to. You see him at rock bottom. The drug stuff is not sugar-coated. You see him sometimes acting like a jerk,
totally.
And I appreciate that. I wonder if you have any insight into how he was willing to show a warts and all depiction of himself.
Well, it was in the script. The script they developed, they obviously made this decision very, very early on that this was kind of what they wanted to do. And I think, Elton's struggles have been so well documented, and his, the difficulties, they're out there. People know about them. So to do the story of his life and try and rewrite the history of it, I mean, we'd have been eaten alive. No one would have. People are, and Elton was famous in his day for having you know, these kind of outbursts. And I think people love him for it. What I wanted to do was try and find a way of explaining and humanizing them, because people don't just have outbursts. People aren't just arseholes, you know. People are, you know, the universe is all about cause and effect. And so as an actor, you want to try and find the human equation to that sum. So, and I think that's what our movie does.
One more thing about you sort of inhabiting this character. What was your favorite outfit to wear? Because you got to wear some awesome outfits in this. As you can see, I like a bit of sparkle myself.
You are no stranger to a bit of sparkle.
No stranger to sparkle.
There's lots I love. I really love the sort of signature outfit of the movie, which is the angel, demon, orange rehab outfit. I just think it's so clever and sort of nuanced with so many secret meanings in it. You know, it's why I think the movie will stand multiple viewings, because you glean things on second viewing that you might not see on first. And so I love that one. And I love the denim jacket from Tiny Dancer, which I am hours away from receiving.
Ooh.
Yes, that's very exciting. I've campaigned for it.
You earned it, man.
Thank you very much. I'll be damned if I see anyone else wearing it. And then, I mean, there's so many, but those two spring to mind.
So you mentioned Bernie a couple of times in this interview.
Yeah.
And one thing that, for all the other things going on in the movie, the fantasy stuff, the dark stuff, I feel very much at the heart of the movie is, for lack of a better term, the bromance.
I would agree with
the
you.
friendship between Bernie and Elton. And I was never aware, I don't know, obviously movies take liberties, but I was never aware there's an early scene where Elton sort of comes on to Bernie or whatever, like tries to get romantic with him. And Bernie turns him down, but unlike how some other men would react, is cool with it, doesn't ruin their friendship. It's, I think, a very important scene.
I think, you know, from what I can gather, that there was no sexual element to their relationship.
Right.
But, you know, this was a time where men potentially might have been less accepting, you know. We're talking about the end of the 60s, you know, so I think what we wanted to do, and I'm speaking slightly for Dexter here, you know, it's his movie, but I think what that moment does is it shows the strength of their friendship, and it shows the quality of Bernie and the kind of person he is. And so, you know, and the scene that immediately follows is back in the rehab centre, and Elton's kind of smiling wistfully and says, "We were completely inseparable after that." Exactly. You know, it's this moment that could have been a disaster for their friendship, but it doesn't. Through this misstep, through this misjudgment, Elton, you know, in the haze of a few drinks, thinks that there might be more to the relationship. But what actually happens is, because Bernie so beautifully deals with it, it fortifies their relationship and strengthens it beyond belief. And that is their relationship. And Elton said in a very beautiful article in The Observer the other day, I'm paraphrasing, but not everything in the movie is true fact, but it is absolutely the truth. And I love that, because it is a fantasy. And the nature of that means that not everything in the movie that happened. Right. We've been as bold and brazen about that as we can be. But I do believe it's the truth of him. And I do believe it's the truth of his and Bernie's relationship. And so for Elton to say that was really lovely.
And I think it's important because, as you said, or as I also said, there are guys who, straight guys, if they'd been in Bernie's position and a friend comes onto them, they would punch him in the face or run off.
Well, I don't know. I've you know, the people, the young men in my life, you know, in 2019 are not those kind of blokes, but, you know, I'm sure they're out there, yeah.
And like you said, it was a different time, so.
Well, quite. It would have been far more heightened then, yeah.
I like the way this whole movie sort of approached, you know, the fact, the gay storyline and just Elton's struggle with coming out, particularly in that era and through the 80s, is very prominent in this film. Again, I didn't want to, it's not so much in Bohemian Rhapsody is what I'm trying to say. It's more of a side thing on that movie. And I know these movies are so different, but because of just the nature of the era, and the character, there's going to be a little bit of comparison, I would say.
Yeah, and it's really hard for me because, you know, I really loved that movie and I love Rami's performance in it, but, you know, when things are constantly framed as being a comparison between Rocketman and Bohemian Rhapsody, it's very hard for me to answer these questions without it looking like I'm throwing shade, and I so don't want to do that because Rami is a new friend, but he's a friend, and the movie's a terrific movie.
And it's very different. It's more of a straightforward movie.
Yeah, and
not
I think
a
it's also
fantasy.
about the band. That's another thing to remember. It's this movie's is pretty unequivocally about Elton. Bernie too, but it's Elton's story. Bernie's a player in Elton's story, whereas that movie is more about their dynamic as a group. So I guess there's a limit to what you can do in a 2-hour structure. Yes, but I'm very proud of the fact that our movie that puts it front and center, because I think it's a big part of Elton's history, and it's he's a kind of he's an icon for that community, and was a real pioneer and a real standard bearer, and so it was something that we took great care to deal with love and consideration.
There has been some to-do made about the love scene in the movie. I didn't think it was particularly that
No,
shocking.
well, all the to-do was made before anyone had seen it. So, that's why that happened. When you sit and you watch it, it's not a kind of gratuitous, sensationalist thing. It's a tender moment between two young people expressing their affection for one another, which everyone does and everyone goes through. It's a scene I'm very proud of.
Now that people have seen the movie, or it's been screened a lot, what has been the general response? I haven't heard much backlash at all. Have you gotten any messages from fans or anyone saying they appreciate the scene, or just in general this storyline?
I think when I speak to journalists who belong to gay publications, they've been very, very warm and very appreciative. And I have to say, it's not in bad taste for me to do so. The response to the whole thing has been pretty unequivocally brilliant so far. I do feel a bit like I'm dreaming. But it's wonderful, because I've poured everything into this. So I felt it was good. I was pretty sure it was good, and I think had it not been received warmly, I would have been pretty heartbroken. But it's hugely validating that everyone likes it so much.
I think a scene like that, presented as it was, as you said, just as any straight love scene would be presented.
Yeah, I think that's the way you've got to look at it. You've got to think, okay, so if this was a guy and a girl, how would I be asking an actor about it in an interview? And I think it's, of course, it obviously needs discussing, because it's still something that feels relatively new and fresh in a movie of this nature. Mm-hmm. But I think when you think about it in those terms, it sort of makes you go, oh, yeah.
Yeah, I just think it's important that it was presented that way so plainly. Another message I got from the movie, I didn't know that much about Elton's childhood.
Yeah, no, I didn't actually.
And it broke my heart a couple times, some of these scenes. And I wonder if, how you think the message about supporting your children.
That's what I've said. I think that when I've been asked about the movie and what I'd like people to take away from it, I think if there's one great thing you could take away, it's that, it's that classic thing, isn't it? The parents are slightly destined to up their kids. Sorry, probably shouldn't swear, but I think if you can watch a film like this and see it all play out before your eyes, it's such a great cautionary tale for allowing your children to be their authentic selves and not allowing your own baggage to enter the equation more than it has to, really. There really is no reason to not support your children in who they are. So I think if anyone, I'd love people to take that away from it.
Yeah, I think it's a very important message for the film. So obviously I did mention Bohemian Rhapsody, but there have been a lot of I feel like we're in a new golden era for musical films. Besides Bohemian Rhapsody, we got Yesterday coming out soon, so I'm looking forward to seeing.
Richard Curtis,
Star is Born, of course, and there's other ones coming up, and now Rocketman is going to lead the charge. And like I said, I do think at Oscar time we'll be seeing a lot of accolades for it. Why do you think there has been this renaissance of musical films? There's a lot of biopics coming out as well as fictional musical films.
I don't know. I think people peg it as being a sort of escapism thing, from the trials and tribulations of the world, which I don't really subscribe to. I think that I don't really buy that. I think trends happen, and all it takes is for one, for there to be one great emotionally affecting type of movie, and then you get a whole spate of them. Welcome to the superhero phenomenon. Welcome to, maybe with what's happening now. I think Great Showman, for example, really was a real global phenomenon, and so things have followed in its slipstream. In terms of like rock biopics, I think, we live in the kind of post-internet age, and so mystique and enigma they're sort of gone now. You don't really get movie stars anymore. You get actors. The movie star thing kind of died with the advent of the internet, I feel, because now what people want is to know everything, whereas before, I think people were quite happy to not know, and there was something quite exciting about that. So I wonder if there's something nostalgic about a time when, when legends happened, because we don't really get legends now. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We get people who are massively successful and brilliant artists and manage to retain a lot of privacy. But, I don't know that we're getting Eltons and Davids and Micks and Stevies and, I feel like that's kind of from a time gone by. So maybe it's about nostalgia.
And I want movies on all those people. You
Me
can play
too,
them all.
Yeah, me too. I don't know if I can play all those guys.
All right, well, thank you so much. Look forward to seeing you at the Oscars. I look forward to, I'm sorry, I'm just putting that out there. Look forward to you putting out a record someday when you're ready, because I think you could do it. And congratulations on this fabulous film.
You're very kind. Thank you for a lovely interview. Thank you.